Since buying the Nintendo Switch, I find myself very interested in playing older games with accurate-ish controllers which were used to play those games originally. Playing games with the original controllers just seems like I have a little bit more fun, and obviously it itches a nostalgia itch. Luckily we've seen quite a few retro games, retro-inspired games, and collections so far. Collections like, but not limited to, Atari Flashback Classics, Namco Museum Arcade Pack, the SNK 40th Anniversary Collection, you get the idea. For most of the arcade games, an arcade stick is generally what I'm happy to play those games with, but for some of the other games, they were originally made and played with different controllers. Keeping in mind that retro controllers are available to buy for new consoles, but are not natively compatible with the Switch, at least as far as I know, and I don't really want to buy a controller to find out that it doesn't work the way you want it to. So before we get into that, hello everyone, welcome to the QuesterMage, Mage's Quest to talk about games. In today's video I want to talk about 5 retro controllers we need, or at least I'd like, to see on Nintendo Switch. The channel has recently passed a 100 subscriber milestone, and I wanted to say a big thank you to all that watch, comment and like the videos, with a very big special thank you to each subscriber on the channel. I am so happy we've passed 100 subs. Making these videos is a lot of fun and hopefully more milestones are to come. I'm trying to grow and improve the channel as best as I can, and I really hope you all enjoy the content so far and going forward. Once again, thank you all very much. So the 5 controllers are a joystick, a spinner or slash paddle, pinball controls, and trackball controls. The last one I'll leave until later on in the video. As the thumbnail suggests, I'm struggling to find Nintendo Switch dedicated or at least compatible solutions. There probably are, I just don't know if they work. Games like the Atari Flashback Classics on Switch do have a good variety of control options, as you can see here on the screen. I went through 2 games, I went through Asteroids and Tempest, and like I said, you have quite a few control options, which is always a good thing, but some of the games never really felt 100% right while playing with analog sticks. With this in mind, let's talk a little bit more about the joystick. After buying several retro collections on Nintendo Switch, I really wanted a joystick for the console. Not only an arcade stick, but an old school joystick, as I have nostalgia of playing some of these games in that way. Now I have the C64 Mini and tried the C64 Mini joystick with and without a Mayflash Magic NS, and unfortunately this did not work. Like I said earlier, there are third-party controllers that have been made for modern machines, but I don't see any of these mentioned compatibility with the Switch in comments or reviews. I'm surprised that companies like 8BitDo or Hori have not made any of these yet, and hopefully they will, as I think this would be a nice additional controller for the machine and might be popular. So moving on to a spinner slash paddle. Earlier I spoke about the Atari Flashback Classics on Nintendo Switch. I really like this collection. I know it's not for everyone, but for me it's really worth it, at least for the historical value. And also I think the arcade games are really fun, and some of the console ones too. Now some of the games on here were originally designed with spinner slash paddle controls, and you can tell. When playing some of these games, I found that the control sensitivity was not quite right, as I mentioned before. It was never game breaking, but I did notice that something was off. I really feel like this is due to the control method being used by the player not being the one intended by the developer. I think games like Tempest are much more fun when playing with the correct controller, so hopefully we will get a spinner slash paddle controller on the Nintendo Switch. So the third and fourth I'm gonna put together, so that's pinball and trackball controls, as I think there's a solution already out there that would be a really nice solution, and that's the AtGames Legends Gamer or the AtGames Legends Gamer Pro. If, and that's a big if, the Gamer Pro worked on Switch, I think this would be a great solution to play retro games, potentially offering the following control methods: a full-sized arcade setup for 2 players, pinball controls, and trackball controls, also playable via Bluetooth or wired. However, unfortunately, I have not seen anyone talking about these controllers working on Switch. Obviously, the primary function of this controller is not to be compatible with Nintendo's console. I would like to play games like Zen Star Wars Pinball or Atari trackball games with one of these controllers, but as I don't know if they work with the Switch, it would be an expensive controller to test and potentially not work. Also, seriously, why don't we have a pinball controller for Switch? I really like playing these type of games on the machine, especially in handheld or with a vertical TV setup. 4 buttons on each side, a plunger, and a trackball on top. Hopefully with rumble, that would be a lovely controller to see. A lot to ask, and that's why it would be nice if controllers like the AtGames Legends Gamer Pro are made, or at least work with, the Nintendo Switch. Now my fifth choice is the Arcade 1-Up Couchcade. Sounds weird, right? Well, my first thought when I saw these online, funnily enough, was, does it work with the Nintendo Switch? This could be a really good solution to having retro controllers that are licensed and arcade inspired or themed for each game. Arcade 1-Up could have a supplementary business model here in my opinion. If these do work with consoles, I think these would sell pretty well, especially for arcade games. I haven't seen anyone test these with the Switch, which is a shame. If they are compatible, I would definitely be interested in buying these, and probably would be looking to buy more in the future depending on the theme. The Atari Couchcade would be the first I would buy to play the Atari Flashbacks classics. Would you be interested in buying the Arcade 1-Up Couchcade if you knew it was compatible with Nintendo Switch? Please let me know down in the comments. Now, as a side note, as we're talking about the Atari Flashbacks classics on Nintendo Switch, I'd like to point out something that was a little weird. The game does not support playing games in a vertical orientation in TV mode. That only works in handheld mode unless I'm missing something. It was a little disappointing for me as games like Tempest should be played in a vertical orientation. The game still played absolutely fine in horizontal mode, but I thought it was worth pointing out as when I bought the game, I saw it supported vertical gameplay, but there was no mention that this feature was limited to handheld mode only. It would be nice if this was changed to allow vertical gameplay in all modes. Lastly, I don't know if there are many people out there that try to get old controllers to work on new consoles, but for those of us that like replaying old games with controllers that are at least similar to the ones from back then, I think this is important. It's like Arcade 1-Ups needing the arcade accurate controls. I feel the same with retro games on any console really. I know there are multiple adapters out there to connect old controllers to a new console. I have one or two of them that work really well, but it would still be nice if there were retro controllers made or updated specifically to work with the Nintendo Switch, and for me especially to be compatible with the button remapping feature, which the console does now have. So what do you think of 5 retro controllers we need, or at least I'd like to see, on Nintendo Switch? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? How would you change it? Please leave your impression down in the comment section. But that's going to do it for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. If you like our content, we have a few videos talking about games, mostly arcade and retro on the channel. If you'd like to watch these, please take a look. If you like our content and want to help the channel grow, please click that like, subscribe and notification bell for more of our content in the future. And until then, thanks again.